Oh, welcome back to Everything from Nothing, Ireland's most aquatic experience.
Aquatic? Why aquatic?
Are you not underwater right now?
No.
Okay. I misunderstood. We got new equipment and that's making me really confused. I thought we were underwater.
Does it sound like you're underwater with the headphones on? No.
It kind of does, yeah. It kind of does.
Do you have
yeah.
headphones on? No, you don't.
Do you have?
Should I?
You can if you want, but you don't have
I
to.
don't like them.
I'm all right. Yeah. I'll get them if I need them. I'm all right now. Yeah.
We're joined this week by Dean Rossiter. I pronounced that name right.
You did? Yeah.
'Cause, yeah. And Dean's, you're a musician. Are you a composer specifically?
I'm a producer and a composer.
Okay. Yeah. And you're actually just back from Hollywood, which I was going to ask you a question. Do you recognize this font?
I do, yes. Yeah. Very familiar.
This is the Hollywood of Ireland you're in.
Yeah. Well, Hugh told me that the whole idea was to bring Hollywood to Thurles.
That's it.
Yeah.
Crowhig,
we've
Wholesome Hollywood.
Yeah, and we brought you. We brought you.
We've made it. We finally did it.
Please, I don't represent all of Hollywood. Don't.
They didn't take you, no.
They didn't. No, I left.
Oh, shit.
I ran away. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
That's right. How long were you living there, actually?
I went there originally in 2013 on a J1 graduate visa. So I had a year there and just loved it,
Yeah.
Had a blast, and it kind of seemed like the place to be for what I wanted to do at the time, which was kind of focus on film scores and film music. So the whole industry was there. Actually, that's a lie. I originally went to Florida, spent 2 days in Florida. I was like, no way am I staying here.
Really?
Yeah, it was just, I only went there because a friend of mine had already moved there, and so I knew someone. I was like, I'll try and pick up a job. I have the year to work with. So
yeah.
But yeah, 2 days, man, it was like everyone there was 90. It was like a whole beach retirement community.
In Florida,
Yeah.
That's mad.
They all go there to retire.
Yeah. And I,
does,
was a bit green at the time, didn't realize this. So yeah, I just said, not for me, but I have the visa. So where is still in America, but far from here.
Yeah.
So went there and just, figured out, didn't know anyone, didn't have anywhere to stay or anything, and just kind of.
Do you remember your first week there, and what did you?
Yeah, man. It was chaos. Yeah. If anyone ever decides to move to LA, I would say have a plan first. It'll be a lot easier. Yeah. I went. So I landed. I didn't know anywhere to go. Didn't know anyone. So I booked into a hostel for 3 nights and said, I'll just use these 3 nights. I'll get onto Craigslist and email for rooms and apartments, whatnot. So the first week was mad. Emailed 100 people. One person replied. Met him the next day. Name was Justin. Great guy. Shout out to Justin.
He wasn't a serial killer or anything.
He was. I mean, not that I know of. He could be, but he kept it very quiet.
Good one, though.
Yeah, good one. Yeah. He was a super nice guy, and met him, toured this apartment he was living in. There was 2 other people there as well. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. Paid the deposit that day. Went back to the hostel, checked out. And just went and moved in. Had to get a car then because you can't walk. Well, you can walk, but you won't get very far. You got to drive if you want to live there. So had to get a car, the apartment sorted, all that stuff. Figure out what I was going to do, figure out my way around.
I've never been to Hollywood, but is it a thing that you can't walk to some places? When I was in Mississippi, you couldn't walk to the college. It wasn't possible.
No, yeah, LA is
just because of how far they are.
No, they were nearby, but there was no path.
Oh, right.
You had to go. We had to go across a motorway just to get to the entrance. Motorway bridge.
That's bizarre.
And I got a bike in Walmart for $50 or $80, and I started cycling. People started slowing down and going, "Are you okay, man?"
That's bizarre.
Because they weren't used to seeing people that weren't kids out on a bike.
Yeah.
Because where's your car? What did you break down?
Yeah. I would walk, maybe 20. Because I like to walk, so I would walk 20, 30 blocks. Which is, I suppose, a fair distance. And American friends of mine were like, "You're crazy, man. You should be taking a taxi." Come on.
And would you meet other crazy people when you're walking? Was there a community of you?
The guys who walk.
I tell you what, there is. There's a brilliant community of Irish people there.
Oh, cool.
It's like anywhere, you'll always find people from home, and they always congregate together, and they're great crack because they're all away and they have this kind of commonality, So I met wonderful. I was actually back to your question. So the first week, the end of my first week, I was just wrecked. I was like, I figured all this out. I need a beer, you know?
Yeah.
So I went out and I just started walking. Still didn't really know my way around my own neighborhood, you know? So just found like a busy street and just kept walking. Everywhere looked dead.
Yeah.
I eventually stumbled across an Irish bar, which was popping.
Oh, lovely.
You know?
Yeah.
There was like a Boston Red Sox game on. It was a big Red Sox place. So I went in there. I was like, this will do. I'll have a beer. Got chatting to the bartender, a guy called Kevin from Mayo.
Shout out Kevin.
Shout out to Kevin. And another guy, Norm, who was from
Cheers.
the East Coast. Cheers, yeah. Yeah, and those two guys became like my best friends.
Good.
Yeah, and still two of my best friends to this day. So that was that was week one.
Yeah.
But that bar I met a lot of crazy people in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, it's a very, you know, unique place. There's lots of crazy cats around.
Did you feel really like, was there a whole, like, 'cause the Americans, like, they seem very fascinated with Irish people. Was it very much like that? Like, very kind of, were they infatuated by your accent and
Yes.
asking you to say certain words or say that again, man? Say that.
It's they, you know, it's a bit unfair. Like, you know,
really?
it's like kind of having a golden ticket like to the chocolate factory.
Okay,
you know,
yeah.
if you have an Irish accent.
Yeah.
They love it. Yeah, they love it. And they love Ireland. You know, they have such a connection. Most Americans claim such a big connection to Ireland.
Yeah.
And most of them really want to come here and visit. And yeah, so like there's a lot of love for Irish people
That's
there
cool,
for sure. Yeah, 100%.
So that probably helped with, like, settling in and feeling well.
It did, you know, and especially like I said, because even the Irish people, I know, you know, you don't necessarily go to a new country to meet Irish people, but the Irish people there were so welcoming, you know, and they have like a local GAA team there, and they just welcomed me in straight away, and because they had all been there for so long, they knew loads of other local people anyway. So it was really, it was very easy to make those kind of local connections, and in huge part because of the Irishness.
Yeah, sort of like a shortcut into, like, they've done all the groundwork of having to discover the place and do this. You know, you have these people who are just like, you know, instead of you spending 2-3 years even trying to figure out the area, these guys go, no, this is this and this is that.
Yeah, oh yeah, exactly. It cuts out a lot of that kind of, and that's I think that's why a lot of people leave early. You know, it's probably rare to go, you know, on a whim and stay for so long, or as long as I did, because a lot of people go for a year and leave. You know, but it's a very easy place to get disheartened in if you don't have that community around you. You know, it can be a lonely place.
And what about getting some work or something? You know, like, how do you start into that? Or?
Again, it's like, you know, not to push an old cliche, but a lot of it's who you know. And through these people that I had met and became friends with, they would introduce me around to other local, and like everyone is involved in some kind of creative endeavor there anyway. You know, if you meet someone working in a bar, that's to pay for their short films, you know, or something like that.
That's so cool.
So you're just around like-minded people,
That's
you know,
really cool.
so that helps a lot. And, you know, a friend is like, hey, I'm going to make this short film. Will you do the music?
Yeah.
Of course they will. Yeah, sure. You know, so you do a bunch of that. And then it's nice to not be the only one trying to push it, you know. You're surrounded by people who are also kind of go-getters in that field. So
That's cool.
So it starts off like that, or at least it did for me, just doing projects for friends. And then, through that I met a producer, different producers over time, but got some interesting work from them. They were doing commercials, like fantasy football commercial for Yahoo's website thing. I saw he did that, and then got to know that producer. So it just kind of rolls on to more stuff, and, you know, so again, I was lucky, you know, that I had that, I guess, community and connection to help me get into that. But yeah, I can't stress enough, go with the plan. Go with the plan. You'll be much better off. Because
like it's California is like it's an expensive place to live.
Very expensive,
and it's kind of a bit of a conundrum. I don't know what the right word is. A bit of a conundrum because its biggest industry is creativity, which is also the most unreliable one. So to go to one of the most expensive places to live in the world with such an unreliable industry, like, are you worried about, because the work isn't consistent, you're sort of depending on, you know, your friends having a project every week or something like that. Did you find that tricky? Or
you know, that's an interesting question, because that's probably a lot. The answer is yes, I did find it tricky, but that was probably a lot more to do with my mindset at the time.
Okay.
Because you are there and you're kind of in the grind and you're like, oh, I got to be doing something, you know, or otherwise they're going to forget I'm here and I'm just not going to get work, you know. But so for a long time, I was kind of like that. I was like, oh, I got to do this, I got to do that, you know. But then, you know, around probably 2017, it's just something changed in me, and I kind of started to think differently about the whole thing, and I started to think more along the lines of, well, look, this is what I want to do. This is what I love, and like to a certain degree, no one's really going to interfere with that. You know, it's like I'm going to do it anyway. You know, and if this project fails, I'll just do another one. You know, that's hard to have that attitude in LA because there's a lot of rejection. You hear no all the time, and that is why people leave, because they're so sick of hearing no. So I would say you just need to get your own head right first. Be prepared for that. Don't let it cut you too deep, you know, because on one hand, a lot of these people are just trying to do the best for their own stuff too. And on the other hand, the ones who aren't are just kind of disheartened because they have tried and it didn't work out, you know? So you know, there's a certain amount of empathy, I guess, and you just kind of have to step outside of the industry sometimes, you know, and just see yourself as a person again and be like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it regardless, you know?
Yeah. I think it reminds me, that moment you had in 2017 reminds me of something my mother taught me a few years ago. Like, she got into art a long time ago and she like obsessed with it, but so she said that the thing about like an artist, and I would say this applies as a musician, or like if you're even doing podcasts or anything that's like of a creative nature, with what she said to me anyways, no one's going to ever come up and say you're an artist. But when you get your degree as a doctor or something like that, you can say I'm a doctor, and everyone can go, you're right, because you have the papers. But when it comes to music and art and all these things, no one is ever, like, even if you put out 10 albums, no one's ever going to come up and say, you have to kind of say that to yourself at some stage. And I think it sounds cool. Like, I think like that reminds me of the moment you had in 2017, which is like going, but this is what I'm doing. This is like who I am. And now I think accepting that is the first step to nearly sort of, I think then you'll start to find more opportunities for work because you're looking for it in a confident kind of way.
100%. And you're also just more like, you're more set in yourself, so you're more willing to explore new ideas, to explore new avenues, you know. Like, I think one of the biggest downsides to really passionately pursuing a creative field, we'll say, is that it's very easy to become caught up in it and to think that's who you are. Like, all I ever wanted to do was play music. I just wanted to play rock and roll shows and sell out stadiums, you know. And so there's a small trapping of fame in that, you know, that I think a lot of artists don't acknowledge, but like a little bit of everyone wants that acclaim, you know, because we don't get the piece of paper like the doctors do, you know. So that's how we measure it, you know.
That's so
and do you enjoy it all the time? Like, because you work quite hard, I'd say, like from like, as in you do a lot of what you showed me.
I love it. Like I love to work. I love to be involved in a project. I love to be in the trenches. Like, I think it's where artists thrive the most. Is there like I had a deadline Friday or whatever, and I'm up half the night and I'm going, oh, for God's sake. I mean, I'm in torture for a bit. I have a pain in my back right now. I'm never going to be finished. And then when I have it done, I go, oh, that's very good. And then there's a buzz. But do you have that with your thing where you're going, for God's sake, this is doing my head in? Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. There's hard nothing's fantastic all the time.
You're not like you're not smiling away in the studio. You're like,
no, I'm living my dream. I'm living my dream.
No, it's more like, I'm living my dream.
Exactly.
No, it's great. But see, again, that comes back to it. Like, in my younger years, that was the only dream. You know, now the dream is not to just have one dream.
Okay, that's cool.
So now I'm much more, I would say, of a fuller person than I was when I was just trying to do my art. You know, now the things that are important to me are like my kid, my family, and managing time for that. You know, as well as the music. So if I find I'm getting to that stage now, I just go, no,
Okay.
Like I'm not beholden to anyone here. I'm not going to do this to myself just to please someone.
Just to be clear, I don't do that too often.
Sure. So yeah, no. So if I'm getting to that point, I'm like, no, I'm just going to go play with my kid, man. You know,
brilliant. Yeah.
So.
Do you know what I'm curious about, actually, Hugh? Do you know what I was saying there a minute ago? Like the doctors, like you have to, sir, like. To some extent, I'm kind of talking about that from a society standpoint, but you're an architect, which is one of those things where you need a paper. Yeah. But like, I'd still imagine though there was still a moment where you have to go, oh fuck, I am an architect, and tell yourself that, or did you feel like once you had the paper?
Definitely not once you have the paper.
Yeah,
and definitely not. I don't think as an architect you ever are an architect, because what you would have is, it's kind of one of those professions where people just think, you color things in and shit. It's like, and they're explaining to you shit that like you're thinking, oh my god, it's like kind of, you know. But it's Joe and I think is really fun. You get wound up about that. And at the start, like going, but now you don't give a shit. But I'm in like Facebook groups or follow Facebook group giving advice on building and stuff just to see what people are saying. It's all wrong, but it's entertaining. But if you notice, if the loudest in the group gives the advice, a couple of people agree with him, and then it's definitely right. But it's not. It's mad, but it doesn't really matter. Who gives a shit? Once you're happy in yourself, it doesn't matter.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a lot of, you know, in the music world, there's a lot of that on YouTube as well. I'm always like looking to see what's out there and kind of like the music education realm, and a lot of it's like that. A lot of it's just kind of there to keep coming back, kind of give you a bit, but doesn't give you all of it, you know.
I suppose the other thing as well I notice is you'd be kind of more sensitive about it earlier on when you're kind of not confident in yourself or whatever. You know what I mean? So I'd be trying to get through whatever, and they'd be saying, no, my sister said do it this way. She went out with an architect once or whatever. And you're going, okay, whatever. And because you're not that confident, you kind of get rattled over stuff. But now you go, okay, you know, and you're just more cool about it, like whatever.
Well, it's like, you know, there's never going to be a day when you know more than you don't know. You know, you're always going to know less. So that kind of makes us, I guess, susceptible to this. Like, oh God, I'm not good enough. You know. But it's like, you know, it's the person you're talking to is thinking that as well. You know what I mean?
But you're saying, like, there's never going to think there's a time or things you don't know. Like, it just does kind of remind me of, like, there's like a music theory YouTuber I watched the whole time, like. And he just always says that thing of like, when someone gets to a point where they think they know the basics of music theory, buy a new basics music theory book and read it.
Right.
Because he said like, even though like you know, he like teaches people, he's like been in the industry like a long time. He's like, when I get to a point where I think I know all the basics, I've definitely forgot something.
Right.
And he goes back and looks at it again, even just looks at like the C major scale again, and there could be some new thing he goes, oh, I never thought about this way, like, and like you're just constantly relearning that, like.
100%.
That makes sense. Like when we were like about third year in university, we all thought we were brilliant. We've got progressively worse, progressively dumber every year, you know.
That's funny. Yeah, I definitely always had the thing I like in different areas, because I don't do a specific thing. I don't know whatever the fuck I do. I don't know. I actually don't know what I do. But what I noticed though, the pattern for me that I'm trying to shake off recently was I had a problem with anyone older than me that I couldn't be right, because like because I started doing stuff so young and I started working at festivals and stuff like that, I'd see something that like isn't common sense, but just for some reason I felt like it was wrong and out of place what they were doing. And then I go, oh, could we do it this way? But it was like, there was always like this thing of like, no, because it's like that. And then in my head, it was like, oh, well, they've been doing it longer and they're older than me, so maybe I'm just wrong. And it took me a while to realize that there's lots of people out there in jobs where they don't actually know what they're doing. And they're getting paid to do it. Like, and it took me a long time to actually like accept that. Like, you helped show me that. That
what did I do?
Like no, you're teaching me that. Like, because I used to get worried about that, and you were kind of saying, no, there's lots of people in professional jobs that actually
I'm happy you clarified that he taught you, because otherwise, like, oh, I met you and I realized there's some people who don't know
there's idiots out there.
It's true,
no. So until I met an
the opposite. You're the only one with your head and your shoulders of all the professionals.
But yeah, there's lots of people out there bluffing it, you know. That's for sure.
Hey, don't you kind of admire their confidence?
Definitely.
Oh yeah, hey, you know, there's a lot to be said for that. But I don't know. I always think that like one day you're going to have to fall back on something, and you better know your stuff. You know? But it's kind of similar like that if you're doing a film score and you're working with a director.
Okay.
Because the director often has their vision, you know, and you're their employee essentially. Because on a film, they're the god, you know, so everything.
They're like the CEO of a director is the
exactly. Yeah. So, and the thing is, they'll often try to overdo the job and, you know, try and have a foot in every kind of pie that's going on around the place. So a finger in every pie, a foot in every pie. No, don't put your foot in pies. But so they can often try and talk to you in like musical terms or in that way, like an older person would talk to you know, who's kind of become stuck in their ways.
So condescending sort of.
It's not even condescending. It's more so that like
they're trying to do your job for you, kind of thing.
They're trying to do your job for you
and telling you what they want.
And they've become so involved in their project that they think they know what's best. And often you kind of and they're also very stressed because the music is the last thing to get done, and they've been like tearing their hair out for months in the edit and doing all this stuff, you know. So you're kind of like a therapist at the 11th hour as well. You know, you got to like talk them down, talk them back from the edge.
Yeah, without the music, there's no movie. Like,
there's not. No, it's not. It's, you know, it's half the movie.
Yeah, it's like the tension and everything.
The music is the thing that makes me feel emotions. Like if that wasn't there, it'd be all like just these. You know,
like music and sound. Like when you watch like kind of if someone makes like a homemade movie, like the reason why like homemade like shitty movies look terrible a lot of the time isn't because like the script is that bad or because the cinematography, because they're things people really sit down and think about. But then the sound is the thing they don't really think about. Right. So it's like if you watch like a homemade movie but they like done proper sound design and put like a score behind it, instantly that feels so much better. It adds that extra level of depth. Like, and it's really strange how
like we're sensory beings, you know, and like the more of those senses that get stimulated, the more of a full experience you're going to have, you know. It's like if you I remember watching not an episode but like a clip from The Big Bang Theory, and they had taken out the laugh track.
And
it's
so
just so
it's
bad
horrible.
like it's just so weird and bad.
Seen that with Friends
unfunny.
as well. They took out the laugh track and it's like, wait, how did anyone laugh at it?
You know,
and it comes when you watch the one without Friends, it comes across like, oh god, these people are going through some horrible things. Like you know, it's just drama and it's just they're not having a good time when the laugh track is gone. Like it's kind of weird.
Actually, with the whole working with directors thing, did you ever get any of those like really weird things where like a director says like, can you make this more blue, or like, do you know what sounds when they just say things that don't really make sense? They're trying to get their vision.
Yes, and to be honest, I almost prefer that.
That's cool.
If a director says to me, make this scene feel more blue, that tells me way more about what he wants than if he says, oh, we need like an E minor and a D minor chord here, because I'm like, you probably have very limited knowledge of what you're even talking about in this regard, you know.
Okay.
So just paint a picture for me and let me do my thing, you know. And if it's not right, we'll go back and we'll fix it, you know. But like, but yeah, it's so it definitely happens, and it is preferable for me at least.
Do you have any like composers? Was there any composers or certain soundtracks from movies that made you like or inspired you to get into it, like specific?
Oh yeah, well, John Williams, hugely. I was like, I loved those kind of big action movies growing up, Star Wars, and like when I was like 9, I think, was it 99? I think it was 9. The newer, like the prequel Star Wars movies came out, you know, and like I wasn't around for the originals, so like they were my originals, you know. So but I remember I went to see The Phantom Menace probably like 10 times in the old cinema down here, just because I wanted to hear that Jewel of the Fates, John Williams piece of music at the end, you know.
That's cool.
Blew me away. So John Williams was huge. And then I used to watch like Lost, the TV show was one of my favorite TV shows. Michael Giacchino was the composer for that, and he's gone on. He did the movie Up. He does a lot of Pixar stuff now. He does a new Star Trek movie, so he's fantastic. But he's actually kind of, I think he is probably heavily inspired by John Williams because you can hear a lot of that in his scores.
Did John Williams do Jurassic Park as well, or was that someone else? Yeah.
But basically any Steven Spielberg movie you can think of was John Williams.
Because I think Jurassic Park is one of my, like that theme is one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah, it's iconic.
It's so powerful. I don't know.
Yeah. And most of those like 90s iconic themes were John Williams, like E.T.,
Indiana Jones,
Jaws.
Yeah.
So he's been. I mean, but ask any composer, they'll say John Williams.
Yeah.
But I studied music in Cork in UCC for 4 years. I did like a full music bachelor of music course, and we studied such a variety of stuff. It was amazing. It was one of the best experiences. So we would study like North Indian classical composers, and then we would do like jazz guys and all kinds of stuff. So I like there's people I like in every genre. It's not just film music. And I'll sit down to do a film score, and I'll often find myself thinking about stuff that's not film music, to get me inspired or get me going, because you also run the danger of just making it sound like stuff that's gone before. Then if you just listen to all that stuff that's gone before,
Yeah. Have you ever got into any or had the opportunity to be given enough like sort of creative freedom where you could be real experimental? Like I loved, when, like Hans Zimmer when he was doing the soundtrack for Ocean, or is it Planet Blue? Is that what it's called? For David Attenborough's. Planet Blue, yeah.
Planet Earth.
Planet Earth. Or I think no.
Blue Planet was the water one. Yeah.
For Blue Planet, the second one, Hans Zimmer had an orchestra, but they and he did it with Tom York, which was weird, and they did it with Tom York's vocals, but they had this big orchestra in this massive theater, a multiple amount of orchestras, and they used a painting to get of an ocean or something like that, and then I can't even remember the full thing, but they basically programmed into the ocean waves into a digital sort of form, in line with how just say all the seats are laid out for all the orchestras, and they made with LEDs to get a diagram or what would be a blueprint of so it would light up, as in it would look like a wave going through with LEDs coming up, so moving like a wave would, and then they replicated that with the orchestra to make the orchestra sound like a wave. And when I listened to that, I could hear that before that was even explained to me, the madness of it. It's it literally, and they did that in a whole room, and that fucked with my head that's the level of what people are up to, and I was have you ever got a chance to be do an experimental
I mean on a much smaller scale,
next that's David Attenborough money,
And that's the thing, with those big composers, the freedom is amazing because they have, Hans Zimmer probably charges $1 million plus a movie at this point. I would say he probably charges $1 million just to have a conversation about doing a movie.
Probably.
So, but he's made his money. He's set. So he gets his $1 million now for this next movie. He's just putting that into doing mad stuff. Do you know what I mean? So he has, let's just go hire a mad place that's never been used before, and so he puts it back into it, and that's what keeps it kind of fresh and different, and you compete, But I remember I did a horror movie a few years ago, and I did it all with glasses of water.
Okay.
And recording those at different pitches, and then detuned guitars and kind of banging them with weird stuff. And then so it's basically just sampling, you record all this stuff, you chop it up in your computer, and then you mess around with it. You can load it into a keyboard, so you can play it as a keyboard, So and that stuff is really fun, man. That's just there's no rules, just cut loose, see what kind of mad stuff you can come up with. And I know a guy in LA who does albums, but he does some film music as well. And he goes to kids stores and buys kids instruments.
That's cool.
And he does his scores with those just for something different.
But it's crazy where you can get sounds from, because I remember I was doing a thing one day and I was trying to make a ambient kind of horror type thing.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite sounds I made, didn't expect it to happen. It was I just recorded myself playing diminished 7 chord on my guitar, and then I pitch shifted it, added modulation effects, reverb and everything, and it got to a point where it sounded like someone hitting a big sheet of metal. And then I was able to just have that in at different pitches, and it just made the pure dum dum dum, something. I never would have expected I would have got that sound from where it started, but you just fuck around with it, and eventually it leads to something.
And it's I think a lot of people don't realize that. I think a lot of people who bands and artists who want to have their own music and want to record it themselves, I think there's a lot of intimidation because like, God, I don't know how to use the gear. I don't know how to use the software. I don't know. And it's like, it's not that hard. And it's so fun. It's like so creative. If you just take the pressure off, you know, and just realize like, you don't like, there's no one over your shoulder. Like just sit down and have fun for a while. You know, you can make a whole soundtrack with your voice. Yeah. Like you don't need an instrument, microphone, your voice and your software, you're good to go. You know?
Do you ever find yourself like, were you ever in a room just like with like maybe a wooden spoon or something, I don't know, on your own, just banging on everything and stop and go, I'm getting paid for this?
No, I've often been in a room banging on stuff with sticks thinking, God, I wish I was getting paid for this.
That's probably right.
But yeah, no, so there are definitely some days where you're like, you know, pinch yourself and you go like, you know, especially if you know, you're doing a film project and you get sent the footage and it's really good and you're like, oh man, this is going to be fun. You know? That's a pleasure. You know, and
you're working on films right now, like on the Mill Road, and you've a new studio, Mill Road Records.
Mill Road Records merch.
Dean brought us these lovely cups. We've replaced the other ones, and we have these lovely ones at Mill Road.
Yeah, t-shirts coming.
And like
soon.
if bands wanted to go record at Mill Road Records, that's a possibility now, isn't it?
That is a very, very big possibility. Yeah. So the studio is kind of like.
It's cool studios. It looks amazing.
Thank you very much. Yeah. I'm really proud of it. I'm really happy with the way it came out. It took a long time, a lot of effort and cash went into it. So I'm glad it's up and running finally.
Yeah, it looks class.
But there's the studio itself is kind of three, I guess. There's three prongs to it. There's the come and record your music side, which you know, if I produce your music for you, or you can bring your own producer, that's fine. But there's also courses that are another big aspect of it, and that's kind of more along the lines of what we're just talking about, like trying to teach people how to go and do this.
Classes starting? Because I'd be mad to do one of these.
Oh, you're such a good interviewer. Yeah. these classes run all year long.
Can anyone do it? Like
absolutely anyone,
even an idiot like me,
ages, even a fool like you. And that's the thing, you know. You like there's no prerequisite required. If you just have a passing interest and just want to, you know, dip your toe in and see what it's all about, come and do a day, you know.
And are the classes just like for adults or something? Because I've always just thought about the whole thing of like I'd love to teach like electronic like producing kind of class with kids, because I have no idea what kind of weird sounds they'd come up with. I feel like when you're an adult, like, and if you're into music, you'll have like some bit of music theory, so you'll start thinking slightly diatonically or slightly about different things.
Yeah, sure.
But like if you throw a kid into a room, like they're not thinking about any of that. They're not thinking about time signature.
No, they just want to make the weirdest.
Yeah, so I've always like wanted to see what would happen if you were like got like a room full of kids to make a film score, like, and just see what madness.
Well,
happens.
we do that. So that's a bit like, so there's an Irish charity called Cinemagic that I'm on the board of directors for and have been for a few years. And we do exactly that. We get kids from schools where there's not a lot of arts funding, and, you know, we make movies with them and make soundtracks with them and music videos. And every year we take 30 kids from Ireland to LA to do all the studio tours there and make projects there. And we bring 30 kids from LA to Belfast. And they do all the stuff up there and like learn about Irish history and stuff like that, you know. So yeah, it's definitely out there. If you want to look at some cool stuff some of the Irish youth are doing, check out Cinemagic.
That's cool.
Very cool, yeah.
And do you have, is there like, if people like doing wants get involved in your workshop, do you have a website or just
millroadrecords.com? Yeah,
cool.
It's up and running. You can book through there. There's essentially 13 courses available. The whole thing with this studio is I want it to be more of a modern kind of one-stop shop for how the music business is today, because it's not the way it was 10 or 15 years ago, you know. And this idea of, you know, when I was playing in bands, we would gig for 6 months, save up our money, and then go and try and jam 5 or 6 songs into a weekend recording session in a studio we'd booked, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're never going to compete if that's what you're doing. You're never going to be on the radio, you know. You have to, and like there's so much technology available now that like people can do this stuff at home in their bedrooms, you know. So I think those days are coming to an end, and certainly the days of the big recording studios are coming to an end pretty soon.
Yeah.
So the way the business works now, and you know, Ireland is always a little bit behind the times on these things, but but I think, you know, we have so many great artists. I think it'd be well worthwhile catching up.
Definitely.
You know, the modern music business is you work with a producer, you know, and you have to have a relationship with them, and you work through the arrangements and the music. You can't just cram it into a weekend and expect to compete with the weekend. It's not going to happen. You know? It's like you can't do drums, bass, guitars, keys, tons of backing vocals, you know, in a weekend. It's going to suffer, you know. So that's the idea with the studio, is like you come, you tell me what you want to do, and we're like right, well, we're here until this is done. You know?
That's
so
cool.
if that means you come back and go over a few weeks, that's what we'll do. But at the end of it, you're going to have something that you can put out and that will really work, you know. And then for people who, you know, singer-songwriters who want to pursue their own stuff, that's kind of what the courses are for. You know, there's courses in the instrument groups to learn how to record each instrument group. There's courses in how to actually mix your own music, the principles of mixing, because you can't, you know, people think you record the stuff and that's done. Like, again, you're never going to compete, you know. So I think it's worthwhile for people who are really serious about pursuing it as a passion and as a career. And I think it's worth getting yourself educated.
Definitely,
in the principles.
The day I was out there, you seemed to be working on a film or something you had a big screen in front of you, a piano or something.
Oh yeah.
And is that because online that you can do it, work from anywhere, or is that?
Exactly, yeah. So it's like a hybrid setup basically. So everything is in the one room. So the way the studio is set up is a big room with, say the band are set up in the round. Yeah. So you have your stations around, and then there's a central hub at one end that everything is pre-wired connected to. So a band can literally just come in, sit down, play their song, and it's recorded.
Lovely.
You know? And you capture a lot of the energy, you capture a lot of like what makes the song in that. Brilliant. And then you just go, okay, the rest of you go home, drummer hang out for an hour, let's just tighten that up. You know, singer come back tomorrow, we'll tighten it up, we're good to go, you know.
Lovely.
So it streamlines the whole process. It makes you able to put out lots of music fast, which again, you need to be able to compete. Like you see these acts now, they're putting out a new single every month almost, you know. You got to be able to do that, you know. So that's the way it's set up. So then that central hub then doubles as my kind of film score station. You know, so I can put the movie up top and work on this.
So you're watching the movie and playing at the same time.
So the way the movie stuff works is like a director will sometimes give you a brief breakdown of what they want to do. Sometimes they won't. They'll just say, give me your thing and we'll go from there, which is fantastic when that happens. And then sometimes you'll get it. The kind of the worst case scenario for composers, you get it with music already in it, you know, because directors will have taken music from other movies when they've edited it just to get the rhythm. And then by the time it gets to you, they've become so attached to this. They're like, just copy that, you know. So then you're like, oh.
Can I ask? This isn't to figure out your own personal bank account funds or anything like that. Now, this is more to ask.
What's your PPS number?
One. Around the industry, I starting to get into, but have no idea financially. Like, if I was doing an hour and a half a feature movie, and they said, hey, can you do the whole would you say composition? You know, for the movie. How much would that cost in a general industry standard or whatever?
Right. Well, okay. So unfortunately, there's no real general answer to that. I wish there was, but there's not. Because some projects will come to you with a budget already attached. So they'll say, we've got this amount of money to spend. Do what you can. Okay. So then it's up to you. You're like, right. So they say, let's say it's a small project. They've only got $5,000 of a music budget, right? So then it's up to me. It's like, right, do I want to keep that $5,000 and I'll do the work? Do I want to pay a violin player a day session to come in and put down something live to overdub? You know, so that's up to me. Then I get to kind of break down the project as needed and assign the money to where it should best go. You know,
is there a price where you would say, get out? Like, okay, what about 1,000?
Again, like if they send me amazing footage,
okay,
and I'm like, this is a cool project, and it sucks that they've only got this, like, because the people making this project want to have $1 million to spend. It's not they're doing that, they don't, they would love to. So when I see a small project, I'm like these guys are just passionate filmmakers who want to do something cool, I'll do your project for $1,000 if it looks good. Now, if it's total trash and I'm like,
you're not getting anything out of it, you're like, do you know, as in, you have to connect with it, like, to
exactly. And again, look, I'll take it back to people. A large portion of it is whether or not I want to work with you. More so than your project, because like you might do 10 shit projects. One after the other. But you might be super passionate and you'll be like, I'm going to do shit projects anyway, So 10 years from now, you haven't given up. And people have gone, this guy never gave up. Let's give him a go, let's give him some money and see what he can do. And then you come back to me and say, you stuck with me for 10 years. We've got some money now.
Yeah, that's cool.
So invest your time in people, in people who are like you, who have a similar drive, who have a similar vision of the future and what they want to create.
Yeah.
And that will let that define your choices in projects more so than your payday, I would say.
That's sort of like that mentality aligns with, like, we want to get a space in the town that's sort of between everything, music, art, graphic design, a place basically where someone could go, or it's like like a place for co-creation where someone could go, I want this project. If I go into that room and just say Stevey and Hugh's in there, like Hugh could play the guitar, Stevey could do, the mastering, but then they go into the other room and go, okay, well, we need someone to do the video editing and like you have everything, and then without, like, in a way that, like, because everyone's starting off together, you have this sort of group group mentality of like, well, yeah, we'll all help out with this guy's project and make that become a reality. And then the next time someone else in the group needs the thing. And I think there's such...
it's almost like the building is like a very small, localized version of what you were describing, like LA being like where everyone there is looking for the same project.
Yeah.
Or looking to do the same thing. It's like, oh, I've done this, I know this person. Or like, but it's like that on a more... on a building scale.
There's kind of a law in business or whatever, I can't remember what it's called, of course, but the output of one person is 1, the output of 2 people is 4. The output of 4 people is 16. That's the thing in business. So, and I think the same will be with creative. If you can get all creative people to collaborate together,
100%.
It's going to be huge.
Like, you'll obviously, you'll bump heads. Like, you'll have differences, but like,
if it's good, you will.
But make the project priority. Rather than your creative ego, I guess.
That's probably a tricky thing.
But I was very intrigued. I heard about the Premier Hall going up for grabs. Have you heard about this before? I wasn't here when this happened, but I heard, over time, I won't mention any names, but I heard various people and groups put proposals forward.
Okay.
And I was just so baffled that none of these groups got together and had a conversation about doing a community
together thing.
Thing, because you could have, it could be a venue, but it could also be a place to do podcasts. It could be a place to have lessons. It could be a place to do a dance academy. It could be a place to do all kinds of stuff.
Fabulous.
So, and it's it's a great old historic town venue that we all probably spend time in over our lives. So.
I guess. Yeah. Well, a question though, I was wondering, like, that was like maybe it's aligned in that and the maybe the resistance to co-creation, or I don't know. Like, I think. Anyway, like, so you said something earlier about Ireland being behind, and I definitely agree with that in creativity. I think it is in sort of every area of life in general, but definitely in creativity. What do you think is stopping, preventing, or causing Ireland to not have caught up with California, which you've had lots of experience with, or not specifically California, but behind in general?
It's interesting. First of all, I'll say there are a lot of things about Ireland that before I had left and lived abroad that I would have said were, behind the times that I didn't like, and having now come back and having experienced life elsewhere, there's a lot of great stuff we do here. There's a lot of stuff we do right, and there's a lot of stuff to be really proud of. And even just in our own town here, like everything that I see is going in the right direction.
Yeah.
You know, so I think the will is there. I think the want is there. I think there's probably a certain aspect of it, you know, is that like, whether we like it or not, like the young people aren't in charge. People who are in charge are a bit more traditional and probably, you know, more set in their ways, and that's good to a degree, because I think we should try and maintain a lot of what makes Ireland great. I don't think we should just do a total overhaul and become California.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Ireland's got a good identity as it is.
So I think the youth of Ireland have nothing but passion to make these changes, and I think it will happen. You know, I think it's just a matter of time. And like we've as a country, made huge strides in the last few years, even politically, not to get political, but you know, with the equal marriage referendum and all that stuff, you know, like we're going in the right direction.
Definitely.
We just have to be patient. And like, look, LA is great. Like there's a lot of, you know, you'll if you're a creative, you'll meet a lot of like-minded people. But you know, it's like everywhere has good and bad, you know. So like you said, LA is like mad expensive. Yeah. You know, and we are lucky to be in a time where we're moving into a phase where we don't have to be in LA anymore to do this stuff.
Yeah, I love that.
It's and
or even Dublin, like, you know, just to be able to do this shit in Thurles, like,
exactly.
What we're doing right now is pretty mad.
Yeah, and like there's a lot of stuff coming here from LA. A lot of stuff is coming to film here. One of the guys on the Cinemagic board with me is he's the senior VP of HBO, and it was his call to bring Game of Thrones to Ireland.
That's wild. That's cool.
So the extension of the love of Ireland, like, goes all the way up through the tiers there, you know. So we don't need to worry too much about that. Like, they'll always want to do stuff here. A friend of mine, Kieran Cook, shout out to Kieran, he owns a company called Odyssey Studios. They're based in Limerick. And they do miniatures, prop design and stuff like that. And we spoke recently, and he told me one of the biggest problems facing the creative industries in Ireland is the crews. Okay. All the trained crews are in Dublin, and it costs too much to bring them down here.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So the industry is very centralized in Dublin right now, because if you want.
Yeah, because a lot of stuff that does get made is staying in kind of Wicklow Mountains, very close by. Like,
right, yeah, because, you know, it's cheaper.
Yeah.
You don't have as much travel expenses for people. You don't have to put people up overnight. You know, they go home after their day's work. So, you know, there's still a money factor in that. But this is the way we change that, you know, like groups like this, like,
definitely
do their own thing, you know, and just keep doing it.
I think one of the biggest things to address, from my own experience as working in events and seeing it, like, I'd be calling out, like, you know, not a musician, like, but I, you know, would say promote events or put on events or see. And the one thing I see that I actually think causes lots of damage, specifically in the music industry, is promoters, venue owners, and like event organizers and all that. This whole mentality of, like, there's so much still this mentality of, like, can you do this for free or do this for exposure? And I think that's so prevalent. I haven't been around, maybe that's the same in California, I don't know, but it feels very prevalent of, like, you're lucky to get this job, like, you're lucky to be here, like, shut up giving out about no money, or, you know.
Well, you know, that's you know, it's a two-sided coin as well, I suppose. You know, the reason that attitude exists is because enough people keep agreeing to do it for free.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah, they'll fight. That's the unfortunate thing. I've seen that friend, like, they're stuck in this position, like, if we don't do it, they're just gonna get someone else anyway. So, like, and they feel backed into a corner nearly.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah, I would say, look, you'll find it everywhere you go. Everywhere you go, there's going to be someone that will say, look, we do it for free. You know, LA, Ireland, doesn't make a difference.
Okay,
now, again, I would say most people I've encountered would love to pay you.
Okay.
Would love to have the money to pay you, you know, but they're working on
California, like,
yes. Yeah. But they're kind of working on their own shoestring anyway.
Yeah.
The problem here, I definitely,
No, I was just thinking, I like the idea where people kind of get a kind of percentage of if the thing goes well. Like, if they're not getting paid, okay, you're not getting paid, but, like, we'll cut you in on a.
Yeah.
So that
that's fair, like that.
Yeah, I think that's, you know, you have to look at yourself if you're gonna do it, you can't just be an artist. You know, like I was saying, you have to look at yourself. Right, I do this, but I'm more than this. Like I'm also just a human being. And I have to feed my family, and I have to be a businessman, and I have to do all the stuff I have to do outside of my art as well. You know,
that's definitely like the reality of it as well, is like that. Like, so on the other hand, that's the other thing I see is like, so, you know, I'm talking, that's the negative, I think, on the promoters and the venue owners side of things. But the other hard thing then for the musicians as well is, you know, also there's then it creates this sort of barrier to entry where like you actually have to, it can become, if you use it in a positive way, a motivation to get really good where they can't not pay you, like, you know, and and to really, and to figure out the business of it, like learn, read, it's all the online, like, so there's an extent where like, I'd agree with musicians when the promoters are fucking them over, that happens, I've seen that. But the other side is you can't just stay around giving out about it. Like if you get good enough, learn enough where that just won't happen, because that opportunity is there now with the internet.
100%,
and that's
I do feel like that attitude will change in Ireland. Just like between loads of different things, like the fact that they're piloting like the artist stole thing, so that's going to help at least shift an artist. Like, okay, this is more like people will kind of view creativity more as a feasible job if, like, you know, they're making a separate social welfare payment dedicated to that group.
I didn't know about that. Yeah, wow.
But then also just things like, you know, Ireland doesn't really have a huge amount of like labels or like kind of really competent like managers or agents and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, as that kind of industry grows a bit, that will help kind of create creativity as being more of an industry, because it's like,
and that is a very good point. Like that's largely why Ireland is a little bit behind the time in this, is because back in the day of, you know, the traditional record label gig, you do your deals with the UK.
Yeah.
You know?
And so it's still very much like that in a lot of ways. Like,
it is 100%, like, but it will go like as home recording, home studio. Like, I mean, we're there. We are there. You absolutely, and anyone on YouTube who tells you can't is just trying to get you to come back and watch more videos. You absolutely can make radio ready music at home in your bedroom today.
Billie Eilish and finished the song Bad Guy, that song blew up. It's one of the most listened to songs in the world of all time.
Yeah.
And if you see the video of their little house, this cluttered house that they recorded it in.
100%,
it's crazy.
Do you remember Whitetown, the song Your Woman? Will Always Be Your Woman. It's go. Do you know it? No?
I don't think so.
There's a guy.
Sing it there.
Go on.
Anyway, it was about probably 19. You probably weren't even born, right? I don't know, but I remember it was it was number one hit in the UK.
Whitetown.
Your Woman. I actually think they did they make up the name of the band after they hit?
No
but basically what happened was this guy, I think he was Indian, was at home in London in his flat, recorded this song called Your Woman. And I think it was a Chris Evans or something, played it every morning for a week because he loved it. It was so catchy.
Yeah.
And he went to number one. Your man, he was kind of a heavy fella, and he went on Top of the Pops. And like, he didn't have an image or anything like that. So, and even I think Whitetown could have been made up as the band name after the hit. I'm not sure.
That's
that was it. Like Top of the
overnight,
Pops from his bedroom.
That's class.
Yeah. But yeah, look, it can definitely be done, and I think if you're passionate, you should do it. You know, why not? There's never been a better time, never.
The one we talk about quickly, you have I've seen a poster in town for a gig coming up.
Yes.
And it had this logo on it, Mill Road Records, and I thought, because the band Mill Road, I thought the lads were after starting I was so confused, but I only clicked with me today that it was yourself doing the gig.
Yes.
And what gig is it, and what's the story?
So it's a gig I put together with some other local musicians who are all fantastic, and I'm going to name drop them all now.
Do.
Ricky Martin, his daughter Danielle Martin, Owen Sutton, and Owen Ryan.
Okay.
We have put together a group. We're not by no means a band, a regular band. This is just kind of maybe not a once-off, but a special project we're doing.
No, you'll never see it again, so don't miss it. Be honest.
Do not miss it.
You'll never see it again.
So we're doing a night of Beatles music. So it's called Let It Beatles. And very much inspired by the Beatles documentary that came out on Disney Plus last year. Just was in awe of watching these guys work.
Yeah.
You know, have you guys seen it? No.
Not yet. No, I haven't.
I can't recommend it enough.
Really?
It's incredible. It's like you're sitting in a studio with the Beatles watching them write songs. You know,
That's
it's
cool.
incredible. Yeah.
I heard the opening and Get Back. Was that the movie, or was that you guys playing up in your studio where you get back? It was kind of like the building.
Oh, you probably heard us.
Was that G?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've been rehearsing since January, so it's
it's exciting, the opening thing, isn't it?
It
Just
gets you going. Yeah, it really gets you going. Yeah.
It really builds.
But yeah, so what we're doing is we're playing. That's from their final album, Let It Be.
Yeah.
That was the last album they ever did, and that's the famous rooftop performance everyone knows. So we're playing that final album from beginning to end in its entirety, plus tons of other Beatles songs. Classic rock and roll Beatles hits.
When's it on?
It's on Saturday, August 6th, 2 weeks from today, in the Monks.
Brilliant.
The Monk O'Gormans. It's going to be a great show, yeah. So come down, check it out.
And is it buy tickets on the door? Or
it's a completely free show.
Oh, it's free?
What?
It's a completely free show. You don't need tickets. You just need to come and have a good time.
That's class. And people have to have a good time.
They have to have a good time, or there is security and they will be asked to leave.
Yeah.
Cool.
God, you're really getting kicked out for ruining the buzz.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it'll be a great night. And don't plan on going home early because it's a long set list.
Class.
Cool.
I'll be there anyway. That's going to be cool.
Yeah.
Thanks a million for coming on, Dean.
Thanks for having me,
It's a
guys.
pleasure
It's
having
a
you.
pleasure to talk to you guys. Thank you.
Really appreciate it. And make sure that you go to the gig on what date would it be? So the 20th?
It would be August 6th.
August 6th.
Saturday, 2 weeks from today.
Perfect. August 6th in the Monks Pub in Thurles. It's free, so not going would be
just crazy, really, wouldn't it?
It would. You'd hurt Stevey.
Yeah.
Viscerally.
Yeah.
You'd offend him.
If there was ticket prices, they'd inevitably be too high. So there's no excuses. Just go. It's free.
Yeah,
Just go.
exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
And
don't make me sad.
Yeah, don't make Stevey. And if you don't want to make Stevey, last week we recorded this episode. God, it was awful, wasn't it, Owen? We were here for an hour trying to console our friend Stevey because someone watching this didn't subscribe, and it's you, and you know that. So make sure you press the subscribe button.
And it doesn't cost money.
No, it's free. Yeah,
it's free too.
Yeah,
it's
free. So all these free things, and you could prevent Stevey from living in a world of pain. See you next week. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. That's cool. That's good sounds.
Yeah,
cheers.
That's great. Thank
I love the taste of strawberry medicine as it runs down my neck. I feel it draw me in, and when it settles on my mind, just know you'll find me there inside.